99% of all chess games that you ever play are decided by your calculation skill. Just imagine how much stronger as a chess player you're gonna become if you invest a little bit of your time and energy into developing and improving this key chess skill. What could be better than learning this from the greatest player of all time, Magnus Carlsen? That's exactly what we are gonna do in this video. I'm gonna decode the entire calculation process of Magnus Carlsen so that you can use it in your own games and beat everybody around. What's up, chess player, and welcome to the Journey to Grandmaster, the place where you can improve every single aspect of your chess game, and of course, especially your mindset, your decision-making process, thought process, and your calculation skills. And this is the central topic of our today's video, and we are gonna start with this amazing position where Magnus Carlsen played as white. Please pause the video and try to make a move like the greatest player of all time. So the first tip of advice we can learn from Magnus is that he doesn't think small. No, his main focus is always on winning the game. And what is the best way to win the game? Of course, to deliver a checkmate. How can you do that? Well, you need to take a look at your opponent's king and, well, try to understand whether you can attack it. The best way to attack it is, of course, to give a check. That is why when you start thinking about your opposition, you must start with calculating checks, whether you can attack your opponent's king immediately and whether that is dangerous for him. Because, of course, it might be the case that you can do it, but it's not dangerous. So in order to understand that, you have to calculate a little bit further. Everybody is wondering how many moves ahead you have to calculate in chess. Well, if you are not on Magnus Carlsen level yet, then first of all, I recommend you trying to calculate 3 moves ahead. This is like the first step that if you can achieve is great, but it's very important to do it accurately. So it's better to calculate just 3 moves ahead, but don't miss anything very significant, don't blunder anything, than thinking that you can calculate 10 moves ahead but making a mistake on every move. So focus on accuracy instead of depth. How can you maximize your chances in succeeding in calculation? Well, you have to check not only the opportunities for yourself. Yes, it's essential. We start with looking for a check, how we can attack the opponent's king, but we never make this move immediately. We think what kind of opportunities my opponent has and whether it's okay for me or not. So in this position, there is only one check possible, which is queen takes f7. That is blundering the queen, but we are not thinking like, okay, we are just giving up the queen for one little pawn. It's not a good idea, so we don't do it. No, instead we try to calculate the variation. What is gonna really happen? You have to be open-minded. If there is a check, then you should take a look at it. So, what kind of opportunities our opponent has? It's really easier with checks. This is another advantage because they cannot play whatever they want. They absolutely have to react to this check. So there are only 2 legal moves available here for black. One is rook takes f7 and another one king to h8. How do you decide which move to start with when you're calculating your variation? Always start with the most active opportunities, both for you and for your opponent. They are checks, captures, and threats. So in this case, rook takes f7 is an active move. It takes our queen away. And king h8 is a passive move. In general, if you're making a move forward, you're giving a check, or you're just active, you're taking something, and your opponent has to make a passive move and go somewhere away, this is already a very good sign that it's gonna work well for you. So rather put your focus on those moves that are dangerous for you, like this capture, rook takes f7. Now, how could we calculate further? Because right now we have just lost the queen. Doesn't mean that we have achieved anything great. We do it in the same fashion. We focus on the checks first. And bonus tip of advice, at this point, if you're sacrificing your queen, you better have something very dangerous on your very next turn, or it's not going to end well for you. And what could be that good enough thing? Attacking your king, giving checks, because if you give your opponent just one move to consolidate, it would be too late. He has an extra queen, he's gonna crush you. So the material doesn't matter as long as you checkmate your opponent. To do that, you need to focus on checks. There is absolutely a single check available in this position, but it's good enough because Black has no way to escape with the king. There is literally only one possible move, and then both of the rook takes moves are given a checkmate. Now, this was level 1 of Magnus Carlsen calculation system. Let's proceed to level number 2 and see whether you can solve the puzzle, and of course, I'm gonna explain you how to do it the right way so that you're able to find those combinations like Magnus Carlsen himself. In this position, Magnus Carlsen plays as black against Vasilij Topalov. So try to find the best move and calculate the variations, focusing on what your opponent can do. This is so essential in chess. Black to move, find the best move. Alright, I have warned you, this position is much more difficult, but the same principle applies. Magnus Carlsen thinks big, so he's looking at his opponent's king. Now look at black pieces, all of them are ready to attack, apart from this little guy on c6. The knight is still not ready to attack, and moreover, it's under attack himself. So this is very important when you're calculating your opportunities, trying to understand what your opponent actually trims, homes, and threatens. Because in this case, this rook on f8 is hanging and this knight on c6 is hanging. You absolutely cannot ignore it. I mean, you have to take a look at it and decide whether it's dangerous for you or not, or maybe you have a more dangerous thing coming. So not necessarily you're like, my knight is hanging, I have to forget about all of my plans and just try to save this knight. No, that's the wrong approach, and Magnus Carlsen doesn't go for it. He first thinks what kind of active opportunities he himself has, whether it's good enough to compensate those threats from his opponent. So he always acknowledges the threats, but it doesn't mean that he passively reacts to it. Instead, he finds for an active way, and only if that doesn't work, then he tries to deal with his opponent's threats. For example, in this case, if you know that the rook and the knight are hanging, we could suggest the move rook to c8, and yeah, we protect our knight, the rook is not under attack anymore, but this is the passive move. This is the last thing, the last resource you should think about when you are calculating your options. No, that's absolutely not the first priority that we have. Instead, of course, you remember the most active opportunities: checks, captures, and threats. Like I said, it's level number 2, so we don't have any checks anymore available. Like, yes, we have rook takes g3, but we can calculate it further that h takes g, and we don't have any real follow-up, so that doesn't work. The second step is captures. What can we take in this position? Apart from the same move rook takes g3, we can take this pawn with the bishop, and we can take this bishop on f5. Now, we understand that all of those moves are sacrifices. So how do you understand whether you should sacrifice something in chess or not? Because every sacrifice is a risk. If you are not gonna get anything as a reward afterwards, then you're just losing material, basically, and that is detrimental for your chances to win the chess game. There are two aspects to this question. First of all, there should be some positional factors that might enable those combinations chances. So, for example, in this case, there is the queen, the rook, another rook, and this bishop attacking white's king. You notice they control all of the lines over here, all the files. The bishop is controlling this diagonal. Everybody is looking at this king. Those are 4 active pieces that are attacking. But who is defending the king? Well, the queen is doing that. The rook, well, I don't know, not really certain that it really helps, but let's say kind of helps. The bishop, well, it's controlling those 2 squares, but apart from that, it's not really helping. So we can say on average, roughly 2 pieces are defended. So that means we have 2 pieces more in the attack than our opponent has in the defense. But if you're a little bit careful, then you're going to notice that he also has this rook here that currently is not participating in the game. But if you give just one tempo to this rook to go to e1, d1, that would already be very active in the center, participate in the game in general. And if you give 2 tempi, that's going to come to e2, for example, and cover this second rank, which would help in the defense. Or maybe the opponent can play rook f2, and this rook is going to participate. Or he's going to deliver on his threats, one of which is knight takes f8, and then you're going to have 1 attacking piece less. In every case, if that's the situation, then you need to use this momentum. At least try to do it. Of course, not every time the combination is going to work, but those are the positional concepts that are helping you to understand, okay, there might be something. It should ring a bell in your head. And then you start to calculate. Of course, you start with checks, captures, and threats. Rook takes g3, we already covered, doesn't work. Then we have rook takes f5. Well, in this case, the queen is gonna take. Then we do have a check. We have queen to e3 check, but unfortunately, the queen will just come back, queen to f2, and you don't really have any follow-up, the queen is hanging, and when you're attacking and you have sacrificed some material, you never want to exchange your queens, because it's gonna reduce your attacking potential a lot. So Magnus Carlsen is sitting there and thinking, how can I get to this king? In which order should I somehow eliminate all of his defenders? Because not only the pieces are defending the king, right now these two little guys on h2 and g3 are actually the heroes in the white's position, because they are not allowing these very, very major pieces, heavy pieces, to enter the attack and just destroy this king. But how can we eliminate those little heroes so that we can attack the king directly? Well, of course, with the help of bishop takes g3 move. I'm not saying that we have absolutely immediately make this move. No, quite the opposite. We have to calculate our variations. And so many people are wondering, like, how do you do that? Like, in a real game, your time is very limited, so you cannot just sit there forever and calculate your lines. And that is absolutely true. But when you're learning chess, when you're training, for example, when I ask you to pause the video and find the best move in the position, so please don't be in a hurry and really try to dive deep into the position and think about your calculation process. Are you taking all the necessary steps that I'm teaching you in my videos, whether you're using these key concepts? If you don't, please start doing it. At first, it's gonna be slow, but with the time, this process is gonna be faster and faster in your head, and eventually you're gonna do most of the stuff automatically. But to be able to get there first, you need to do it manually, step by step, like evaluating the position, seeing what kind of threats your opponent has, then whether you have any checks and captures. Absolutely go step by step, manually through each step of this process, and then it's gonna, with the time, be faster and smarter and more accurate. This video is brought to you by Chestnut. Chestnut is making amazing chessboards that allow you to play online from a real 3D board. They have high quality chessboards, nice looking chess pieces, so that you can enjoy and having fun playing it. Chestnut boards also have so many training functions that I absolutely love to use to my training, and it helps me to improve my chess every day. This is, for example, Chestnut Evo. I love to use it for my trainings, but they have so much to offer you depending on your preferences and your budget. And the best part is you can just use the promo code Journey to Grandmaster or click the link in the description to get a big discount on all of the Chestnut products. So bishop takes g3. If white ignores the move, it makes a passive move, I don't know, let's say queen takes c6, then we have created a very huge threat, queen takes h2. By the way, you can always combine checks, captures, and threats into one move. This bishop takes g3 is a capture, we are taking the pawn on g3, but at the same time, we are creating a huge threat, queen takes h2, checkmate. So it's always the best thing to combine. If it would be a check at the same time as well, that would be even better. Unfortunately, that's not possible. So our opponent has to take, I mean, if he has to play something like queen g2 or I don't know, something passive, then we have one pawn for free, we have a free move to continue our attack, and we have opened up the g file, which was crucial for us. That cannot be bad. So basically, we need to focus on the moves that can destroy our potential, like just destroying our bishop and closing this g file again. Okay, how can we continue? Once again, do we have any checks? Rook takes g3, once again another check, but it doesn't really help because we give up too much material and we don't really have a good follow-up. For example, rook takes, queen takes, there would be rook g8, maybe pinning the queen, but just bishop g4, and that shouldn't be enough. Do we have other captures? You always have to be open-minded and look for different opportunities. Yes, we have another capture here, rook takes f5, and that is eliminating this defender, the bishop, and it attacks the queen, so it's an active move. And the queen is a very important defender of this g3 pawn. Remember, our initial idea was to eliminate those little guys. So with this capture, we are not only taking the bishop, we also attack the queen and deflect the defender. So if the queen takes, which is basically the only move we need to calculate, because otherwise we have just one pawn. Remember, we sacrificed the bishop and now we took it away. And then yeah, we have achieved our goals because all of our pieces would be active and the g3 pawn would be still hanging. So this is basically the main move to focus on. Now we do have one check available. We only have a few active pieces here left, so we have to look for a way to use it. Rook takes g3 is a way to do that. The king has only one move, and now we calculate further. Do we have any checks? Yes, we have two checks in the position, queen to h2 and queen to e3. The second one is a checkmate in one, so of course we prefer this one. Now, the reason why chess is such a complicated game and Magnus Carlsen is so good at it and we are not, at least yet, is because you have to do all of that in your head. You are not allowed to move the pieces throughout the game. So, sitting in this position, you have to calculate bishop takes g3, takes, rook takes f5, queen takes, rook takes g3. Remember, I advised you to calculate at least 3 moves ahead if you are capable of that. If, however, you're a little bit more advanced, then the next level would be to calculate the moves till the position clarifies, till none of you and your opponent have any active opportunities, meaning checks, captures, and threats. There is still a chance you're going to blunder some quiet moves, but this is like a top level, high level. In most of the cases, though, the important opportunities would be either check or a capture or a threat. So if you cover that, you're good to go in 99% of the cases. So here we calculate 3 moves ahead. That would be rook takes g3 check, and then after king to f2 we need to calculate just one move further to find that move queen to e3, but that's a check, so that's very helpful, and also it's a checkmate in one. So imagine how cool it would be to play chess without ever having opening troubles again. What if I told you I could teach you all openings you will ever need in just 10 days? You get lifetime access to more than 110 pure value video tutorials, almost 100 practical tasks to apply your knowledge immediately into practice, 30 plus bonus videos to dive 10 times deeper, as well as private community where all questions you might ever have are answered daily. Get a $200 limited time discount with the link in the description and forget about all opening pain once and for all. To understand what distinguishes the calculation process of Magnus Carlsen from everybody else, try to pause the video for a second and solve this position, why to move and win. The most difficult part of the calculation process is actually not to find those checks, captures, and threats. Those are just the candidate moves. The most difficult part is understanding the best responses for your opponent, not the ones that you would like them to make that are good for you, but actually the ones that they want to make that they consider to be the best. And Magnus Carlsen is exceptionally good at this. In this position, we have here the a pawn that is about to promote. But if you're gonna promote it first, and actually I felt badly with it, I thought like, let me just make my queen. I mean, what's the matter? I'm gonna have an entire extra queen here. Everything is great in the position. But it turns out that I haven't thought about the opportunities of my opponent good enough. Yes, I have seen the check here, rook takes g2, but it's not the end of the story. I thought I'm gonna play king f1 and he's gonna give me a lot of checks, but I'm gonna get here to the c file where the check is not going to be possible, right? Because I go here, you don't have any checks, I have an extra queen, you have to resign. But it's essential to find all of the opportunities for your opponent, not only the most obvious one. In this position, it turns out black can just play rook b to f2 check, then king goes to e1, then once again give a check, rook f to e2. If you go back, that's just a draw, you cannot do anything about it, so you have to go to d1 if you want to win the game, and then this rook just comes back to f2, and it threatens a checkmate, rook to f1, but there is another checkmate threat, rook to g1, and because there are 2 of those, you cannot deal with them simultaneously. There is absolutely no way to stop both of the checks. I mean, you can play king to e1 back, of course, but then the rook will repeat the move 2. That would be a draw. And white doesn't have any counter threats. I mean, there is no checks available. King to f8 or queen to g8 would just blunder the queen. Otherwise, no ways to give a check. You can play queen a6 to stop the rook f1 move, but then rook g1 would be a checkmate. So that would be a stupid way to spoil such a nice position for white, absolutely winning if you find the right move. So that's the key thing you have to improve in your games, understanding your opponent's ideas and threats. Once you do that, it's much simpler for you to figure out the right way to continue. So here, rook takes g2 is a problem. We cannot promote our queen immediately. So Magnus Carlsen plays here rook to c2 to stop his opponent Levon Aronian from doing just that. You cannot take it now, and if you take the rook, then we just promote the queen, And now you cannot do anything about it because the queen is protecting the g2 pawn and we still have an extra rook. So you cannot take it. We're going to simply recapture, takes, and then we have an extra rook. Yes, you have a bunch of pawns, but it doesn't matter. In such a position, you're just hopeless. So if you want to be successful in chess and calculate variations like Magnus Carlsen, you have first to think big. You need to focus on the main goal in chess, which is to checkmate your opponent's king. To be able to do that, you have to always start with the most active opportunities, which are checks, captures, and threats. And very important, you have to calculate the variations properly, not only thinking about yourself, I'm so cool, I'm gonna just crush my opponent in the very next move. No, try to think from his perspective, what kind of ideas he or she has and whether there is a way to deal with your threats. Never make your move unless you think what's going to be your opponent's response. Let's see if you can use all the knowledge you got today in this practical homework. You are in the shoes of Magnus Carlsen playing against Vishy Anand and you have a perfect chance to win in this position, but of course you need to think about your opponent's ideas. So I wish you luck, write your solutions in the comments, let's see how many hard-working students we have in our amazing community. Now the question is how you actually transfer this whole theoretical concepts and training with chess puzzles into actual real-time game against a real opponent. In this video I share with you absolutely everything you have to know to crush everybody under 2000 ELO with the simple, clear and structured calculation method.